do a technique, we could do all that sort of stuff, but you'll see it, you might remember it, you might not, you might learn it in the kitchen, you might know what it is already. But very few restaurants and businesses these days, I think, would do sort of whole animal butchery. Now, we do whole venison when they're in season, we do whole lamb in spring when they're in season. And so at their peak, we get them smaller than this. This is about 18 kilos, 19 kilos. But during the spring period, when we do most of them, probably 6, 7, 8 kilos, and we do anywhere from 10 to 15 a week, depending on how busy the restaurant is. So like the little milk-fed spring lamb from Flinders Island. Butchery is something that I've always been into. I grew up on a farm in Adelaide for about 6 years. We had ducks, chickens, sheep, cows. The cows we used to take to the abattoirs, but the rest we used to do ourselves. So from about 12 or 13, it really all started when I had to build a duck pen, because I was doing ag science, because on the farm and stuff, as well as sort of cooking and doing, you know, maths and English and stuff as well too. And we did this project on ducks, and then we got ducks, and then they hatched, and then we didn't know what to do with them. So I took sort of 15 ducks home on the school bus on a Friday afternoon, and then I didn't know what to do with them when I got home, but I'm like, I'll have them, I'll put them somewhere, and then I put them in the laundry, and they shit everywhere for the weekend. And me, my old man and my brother built a sort of duck pen. And then about 12, 16, 18 weeks, you know, later, 4 or 5 months, we got these fully grown sort of white Muscovy ducks. And we're like, well, what do we do with them now? So then all off, done, plucked, yeah, gutted in the freezer. So, and it was only about 12 or 13. So it was a bit, like a bit confronting. But I think always from then I've had a respect of, you know, the land and where produce comes from. You know, we had a little orchard on the, like it wasn't a massive farm, only 40 acres, but we had you know, like we had fruit tree orchard, veggie garden, sheep, cows, probably about 10 or 12 cows that we reared really just for personal use. They're all named after my 6 aunties every year, so we do 6 and then 6, you know, random names, and then my aunties, so we get up at 5 o'clock in the morning when they're calves, and then feed them every morning as soon as they're weaned, and then they all have their E-tags, and then go off to the local abattoir, then come back all broken down into how we wanted it, and then we'd freeze it and sort of divvy it up between the families, really, I suppose. So it's always been an interest to me. And then I took over the Point in Albert Park, which was my first big executive chef job in 05, the same year as Bacchus. That was in the January, and I took over in the September, October of that year. And at the time, that was owned by a company called, it was Tasman Meats, and they were the largest abattoirs in the southern states. Actually, I think it was in Australia, and then they grew to be the largest abattoir out in Brooklyn in the southern hemisphere. And they were bought out about 5 or 6 years ago by like a massive company from Brazil. You know, big meat in Brazil and Argentina, and they wanted sort of Australian meat, so they bought the abattoir. So the owners were butchers, self-made multimillionaires, from Sicily. Yeah, hard fucker. But, you know, he didn't have a huge amount to do with the restaurant, but he oversaw everything. And the one thing, you know, and so I took over the Point from Curly, who'd been there on and off for 10 or 12 years. And the one rule was you can do anything you like, but the meat page needs to stay. So we had a full a la carte, 8 or 10 course tasting menu and a meat page with about, at that stage, it had about 8 or 9 cuts, and I ramped it up to about 14 or 15. And that's really when I started to understand, learn, and, you know, become obsessed almost with grass-fed meat, with grain-fed meat, and with Wagyu, and different types, and to take my base knowledge, which was pretty good, like a lot further. And so we do lots of butchery there. We'd take a trip to the abattoir every 3 or 6 months with the, you know, with the kitchen as well too. Who's been to an abattoir? Yeah, they're pretty brutal and sort of confronting, aren't they, first time? You know, when you get there, and then it becomes normal. Like, I think you become immune to it a little bit, but when you see a, you know, 400, 500, 600 kilo, you know, steer come down, you know, the race, and then the bolt gun, bang, and it's lynched and up, and then it goes through the process. It's pretty amazing too. It's changed a lot. So, you know, we didn't do whole beef there, but we'd do Argentines, you know, the side of beef. We'd do, you know, full legs, you know, full shoulders, you know, cut into quarters or hindquarters and stuff, just because it's easier to manage really, you know, rather than having 200, 300, 400 kilos away. And so the lamb and the pork I did last time, like with Richo, but the lamb's always a good one. because like you just don't see it that often. Who's broken down in like a whole lamb or pig before? Yeah, it's only 4 or 5 out of 32. Yeah, which isn't much really, but you know, when we're doing 14 or 15, it's great because you see, like I get some apprentices and they don't know where the fillet comes from or where the tenderloin is. Like, where's the tenderloin come from? It comes from Top Cut, chef. Well, I don't mean, yeah, who dropped it off, you know, like actually where does it sit? And I suppose the whole core fundamental thing, especially more so at sort of Matilda, is that there's different ways to cook, you know, different parts of the beast. And so, you know, and so once you understand where these things come from, then it gives you like a bit more of an understanding. Do I braise it? Do I poach it? Do I roast it? Do I cook it sous vide? Do I cook it overnight? You know, and so what's my technique going to be? And that's the starting bit, you know, before we get to flavour profiles and then what we want the dish to sort of develop into. Yeah, make sense? Yeah? Any questions so far? None. All right, I'll keep going through then. Easy. So, yeah, does everybody know where all the little bits are? Yeah, does anyone want to help me with this? I can go through it all because it's all in my brain, but let's... Okay. Yeah, just come and point out bits. Huh? Point out bits that we don't know. Yeah, point out bits that you don't know. And hopefully I know. Yeah?
Throughout your career, what's been the biggest struggle that you've had to face?
Biggest struggle that I've had to face throughout my career? There's been a number of them, a lot of them actually, probably. Staying focused, staying dedicated, continuing to have a huge amount of energy, not letting all the shit that goes on in our industry worry me, you know, trying to keep your eye on the prize, and just believing in myself, I suppose. You know, you just got to back yourself sometimes and do it, and you know, regardless of what, you know, this generation might think, you know, one of the keys and secrets, you know, really to success is hard work, right? And it's not just in our industry. For some reason, chefs think that we're the only ones that work hard. We're not, right? I've got friends that are in law, that are accountants, that run their own businesses in different industries, you know, and the more you work, you know, the better you get and the easier things happen for you too. Now that might not necessarily be at this stage of your career, but if you get an executive chef job in 5 or 10 years, or an opportunity overseas, or in a good kitchen here, or to run your own business, you only get out of things, you know, actually what you put in it. And that's why I'm in the restaurant 6 days a week, if not 7, and I still enjoy it now just as much as I did when I was 14 and I first started. And the day that I don't enjoy it anymore is the day that I walk away. And I retire from footy and cricket and, you know, go race motorbikes. Right, so go.
Talk to me about this one.
Right, so shoulder. Yeah?
That's that whole thing?
Yeah, like so the shoulder comes all the way back through here, which you can see on both sides. And then you've got your shank and your shin. Right, so shin at the front, and to shin at the back. Right, if I ever go through with a young person as well too, or like a young chef, then I sort of look at ourselves too, because we're like a sheep or a cow if we bend over and you worry things out. There's the shoulder, there's the shoulder, there's the shin, there's the shin. Right, I always get the shanks and the shins mixed up myself still too. They cook the same way, very similar. There's some different fibres through them, right? But this would be my shank, shin, yeah, rump, bum, leg, yeah, down into my saddle in here, and my fillets float inside here, inside my rib cage, and I'll show you all these, right? The porterhouse, yeah, the sirloin, the loin, and so different names for different, you know, cuts of meat. So what you know, and so in the lamb it's the saddle or the loin. In the cow, the saddle would be, you know, the porterhouse and the Scotch fillet through, as opposed to the rack of lamb. So slightly different names, but the same bone structure, pretty much from a rabbit all the way through to a cow. Yeah, right. And so once you understand, you know, key, like key places to bone things out and understand it, and if you start with a little rabbit, then you'll see the little racks, and then they get bigger and bigger and bigger as you go through.
So this is a saddle, like just.
And so the saddle's back in here. Right, and so the fillet's in here, or the tenderloins. Yeah. Yep, that we'll take off in a minute, and then we'll take the legs off, and then the saddle runs from in here to in here. Yeah, and then the racks are up here. You can see where the racks and the rib cage is.
So like this whole meaty bit.
This comes off pretty much. This is all the belly here, so it really runs from there to there. Okay. Yep, right. Yep, straight down here, and then we'll take a rib off there when we get into it.
Okay.
All right. and the rest I'll go through
Yeah.
as I knock into it now. So, yeah, neck, right, is one of the first things that I take off. Now, there's probably about 15 or 20 different ways that I can butcher this and bone this out, but it depends on what I want to achieve at the end of that, right? If I want to roast it on the bone, off the bone, the saddle, if I want the racks on, if I want to take a long loin off, right? If I want to do the leg whole, if I want to break it down into its primals, if I want to joint this or whatever. But, you know, the first three things that I normally do for ease, right, just to move it around, is I take the neck off, and then I'll come back through and I'll separate the legs, from the forequarter, and then I'll take the shoulders off. All right, so really for this, we can probably go to the saw. And the good thing about this is it's a bit of fun too, right? And the boys always, get a little bit shocked when I, just rock in with a whole lamb or pig or sort of, deer on my shoulder, and then you put it down on the bench and then you just go for it because, it doesn't really happen that often. Right, so the neck, so braising lamb neck, good for sauce or for braising. You can do bone in or bone out. I'll take one side off. Right, a really good secondary cut. You go down there and then we'll just slide, but I'll do that after when I've got access to the board. Right, but the lamb neck, and then as I bone him out, I'll put him back, and then that way you can see everything down in a line. Then we'll come through. Right, and so the lamb flaps in here, or the belly. So think that if it's a pork, a pig, that it's a lot thicker and a lot bigger. Right, but the same thing, okay?
So what kind of things would you use, like the flaps and
So for the flaps we use either for sauce, stock, or if you want to play around and we've got time, then we'll salt and braise the belly, and then we compress it, and you get braised belly, right? And then we might sort of cut it really finely or punch it into discs or squares, and then go back in a pan, like a little croustillant of lamb. And you get this lamb, and so sometimes if we're really fucking around with things, then we'll take it off, salt it, then we'll smash it out, then we'll roll it, truss it, tie it, and then cook it overnight, and you get a ballantine with a spiral, and then you cut it, it's almost like sort of lamb bacon, and then it goes in the pan. It's great. Now through here, when I take off the legs, you'll feel that there's a little sort of knuckle joint back through in here, right? If you can feel that in there.
this bit there?
Yep, in there, right? And that's where I'll come through just inside. If you see through here, right, and then I'm going to come back through here. Through the bit there.
Cut straight through
Yep.
and back.
And I'll bring this down a little bit just so you can see. And if I go just on top of that, then hopefully I go, straight through. And I'll do the same on the other side. Now, I could go straight through there, but then I'd have the flap all on the end of the leg. And if I want to do something with that, then I just sort of ease that off now a little bit. Okay? Just to keep it joined. And then once I find my little space there at the top of his legs, I'll come through.
I think this is like an important thing for chefs to know.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's a lost art, right? And so now this should, if I fit it properly, just roll off sometime. Right, do you want to grab the leg? Right, and watch your head a little bit, all right? And I just give it a little bit of a nudge with the cleaver, and then the leg just drops off. Right, it's pretty clean. I probably could have got it off, but it's always fun to, bring the cleaver out, isn't it? So, right, we've got the hind quarter there, or the legs that I'll bone out after. And then the forequarter. Now, all your primals are in here, right? So they're all in here. Think about that in a sense.
Primals, is that just like...
So primals are your loin, your saddle, your fillet, your rack.
So
Right.
just the prime cuts, like prime.
Yeah, prime cut. So like in a cow, your tenderloin, your scotch, your porterhouse or sirloin, and your rib of beef. Same. So really, there's not a huge amount of primary cuts on there, is there? And so most of it's secondary. All right, then I take the shoulders off. So again, it's actually a lot easier than you think. And I think that, Ray, did everyone get scared by the size? If you break it down in your mind and you follow the seams, right? So God was really, really good to us when he actually designed animals, right? And us, if you follow your seams, it'll just tear apart because, right? And I tell everyone, A dream, and I'll probably never get to live it, is I've boned out every animal that I've come across, but I've never boned out a human being. And I'd really like to at some stage in my life, maybe when I'm 80, you know, go into like a morgue or something and just see what the fillet and the tenderloin and everything's like. And if it's, like, I don't want to eat it, but I'd like to butcher it out and bone out the leg and, you know, French the shoulders and the shanks and play around. I think it'd be great to see what it looks like. Right, and so you'll see a seam in here, right? And then once you find that, yeah, then that just pulls off itself. Now you've got to be careful that you don't go in too far, otherwise you're starting to go into the rack of lamb. All right, so the shoulder then just pulls off.
So when you say seam, you just mean like these?
Yeah, or these.
bits?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Just stick straight into this.
Yep, and then go around. All right, then we've got one shoulder, and then we'll bone that out in a second. And then the second one. So if you hold that, then you can see a bit easy here. Like you can see the seam. Is there a mirror there? No.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Oh yeah. Right, and so you can see the seam in there now. You see? Right, and then once you sort of release that, yeah, and so like you don't have to go through and go in it. It sort of does itself for you, you know. All right, so it just opens itself up very easily. Yeah, get a little bit of the shoulder blade through there. Yeah, done. Right to the two shoulders, so then we'll put this back in. No, we'll do this bit now actually, then we'll get to the shoulders and the boning out of the secondary cuts and stuff. Okay, so you can all see in here now too. Right, the flaps, yeah, the tenderloin, right in here, that's just a little bit of the belly fat.
Yeah.
Right, so I'll bone this out now. I always take this out now because if you cut too far, then it just sort of dips into the saddle or the fillet a little bit. Right, so down the bone, yeah, follow it either side, and this just really pulls away.
How far up does that go? Just
It goes up to about when you're counting down, about the 12th rib.
Yeah, right.
Right, but you see it just sort of pulls out again. Right, you follow the seam and just follow the bone. Yeah, it just comes out itself. And so you got the lamb, yeah, tenderloin or fillet. The loin is the other side of the saddle in here. Yeah, the tenderloin, but you know, I think it's commonly referred to as a lamb fillet, really, isn't it?
Oh,
Right, so that in a cow would be the big tenderloin. Yeah, or eye fillet.
yeah, right.
Yeah. And then again, the same on the other side. Yeah, it just sort of opens up and peels back. And same bone structure for a venison. If you do deer, then you get the fillets out too, but it's obviously like a little bit bigger. Yeah, because they probably come in, you know, for what we get, anywhere from 40 to 60 kilos.
So if you got like whole lambs in your restaurant and broke them all down,
Yeah.
what would you do with those pieces? Like,
Okay, so what we normally do is we do like an acid of lamb, or we'll cook different, you know, bits different ways and then do a plate. So like you might do the roasted leg, the seared saddle, the confit shoulder, and the fillet just sliced in 4 or 5
just
pieces.
like all in one plate, 'cause they're quite
Yep.
small.
Yeah, they are
on
quite
their
small.
own as well.
Yeah, and so you'd give bits of the whole animal rather than that because you only get 2 portions.
Yeah.
Right, so now, let me think about it, what I can. So I can either come down through here and then take all the belly off and then come across as I normally would if I'm going to clean it up. I might do that on one side, right? And so in here, right, you can see that the saddle's in here, or in the UK they call it the cannon.
Cannon?
Yeah, cannon of lamb, right? Or the saddle of lamb back through here. Yeah, it runs to about here. Or it's like the loin of lamb. But on a beef, that'd be the porterhouse, right? Or the sirloin. And then down here is your rib of beef, right? Either a full rib of beef or like a rib eye, right? But that's the rack here, right? Or the cutlets. Right, and so we'll go above this. And I know that if I follow this line all the way across and then I roll off the belly, that when I get to the ribs, yeah, that it's much easier to clean. Right, I just don't want to go into my saddle. All right. Backstrap, yes. Yeah, backstrap's another name for it. And so you'll find that, you know, butchery names can be very confusing because there's Australian names And then even the Australian names might have 2 or 3 different names depending whether it's MLA, whether it's butchers, cut, or like a chef talking, right? Or how different people do. Then you get into the UK, the French, the US, the Australian, and then some parts of Europe. And so the same cut, you know, could have 5 different names.
Yeah, you're often comparing the different animals.
Huh?
You're often comparing the different animals and
Yeah.
similarities. Are there any real obstructions that come up with the other animals that we don't have here now that you would?
You've got to be very careful with a rabbit because he's little. Hares, I did a lot of hares in the UK. I do about 20 to 30 hares every Thursday. Yeah, which is kind of fun. Yeah, but they'd come in warm and sometimes with the fur on and sometimes guts on and blood everywhere. So that was pretty wild actually. That was good. Yeah, it was cool. I used to, I was going through my sort of American Psycho stage at that period. So I had a bench about this big and I would get 4 garbage bags all cut and split and just tape them up. And then the centre cooktop was there, the pass was there at the square, and I'd have sort of 2 sort of boxes next to me, right? Like black crates. And I'd put on a blue and white butcher's apron and they'd get there about 8:30 and I'd have them done always before lunch service, between 11 and 11:30 broken down. And then I'd just go into it and go fucking crazy for 3 hours. And then I'd go and then one day I'd turn around and feels like, my God, fuck, like you came in the office and I just had blood. Like you keep cleaning the whole time, that it kind of makes more mess. And there's sort of something a little bit scary and powerful about the sous chef that's just got blood all over his face and stuff everywhere. For some reason, when you ask people to do things at that time in the morning, it just happens and there's no questions.
What's the most fun animal to instruct?
Lamb are good. I like venison actually. Venison's probably one of my favourites. Like especially when it's been dry aged for a little bit and hung for, 10, 12, 14 days is good fun. Well, the meat's just a bit better. They're a bit easier to bone out. They're a little bit stinky. They're at that nice gamey sort of stage where, like, I butcher it and I really want to cook it. And it's probably not as common as, lamb or pork. So, when the game season is on, which is normally the end of winter, right, or halfway through winter when they start coming out of the mountains, right, they search for food, so they come down. And then that's when you can shoot them and pop them off a bit better. Yeah, in Australia, in Mansfield, up around there, up sort of south of Buller and stuff around.
Is there an animal that you haven't eaten that you'd like to try?
I haven't eaten much of the safari animals, but I wouldn't mind trying a few more of those.
Like a lion?
Like a lion or a tiger or, I don't know about a giraffe, but sort of like wild kills, Yeah, moose yak I'd like to try. Moose, I was in Canada doing a couple of dinners last January and I wanted to try moose, but it wasn't in season and they couldn't get it. But, I'd like to try moose. Bears, I asked about bears too. No bears. Yes, we do a lot of kangaroo actually these days. Right, so you got really just tail or saddles and stuff, really. Right, so your belly flapping it, right? If you look at this now, like you can see, the similarities between that and a sort of like in a pork belly. Yep, with the bone off, you can see how the ribs are on there, the fat flap. So there's lots of good meat in there. Right, there's a lot of good meat in there, but we'll go through that in a second. Sauce is stocked, that roasts really, really well. And so normally we'd use all our bones for sauce, for stock, and then all our trim, like our bad trim we call it, for sauces. Right, but there's some good meat in here too, for navran of lamb, for slow blazing. Like you got the breastplate through there too. Right, that in a cow chuck. Yeah, 4/4, everything in there for slow cooking and braising. There's actually, like a fair amount of like good meat in there. For mincing, if you clean up the fat, for mince, for koftas, meatballs, staff meal.
How sustainable is the animals that you kill? And
Mine,
how much, the ones that you source for your restaurants, and how much head to toe do you do?
most of it's pretty sustainable. I would say it's all really sustainable. Some of it's wild, some of it's farmed. You can have a whole conversation about the sustainability of farming and what it is and what the impact is, for human consumption. And the head to...
Typically go
Huh?
for more sustainable
We go for smaller producers, really. I mean, I've probably got now 10 or 12 different butchers, and I've got sort of 2 or 3 primary ones for day-to-days, and then when I look for different stuff, then I get sort of, you know, like I might have 2 for pork, you know, depending on the size, whether they're suckling pigs, big one, or really, really small suckling pigs. You know, different lamb suppliers for different times of the year.
Really?
Ducks, yep. Yeah, ducks for different guys. Well, they change throughout the season. You know, because Australia's so big, then different seasons in a sense, you know, it's like, you know, the strawberries from Queensland in June, July are great, yeah, but in Melbourne it's the middle of winter, even though we've got access to great strawberries, you know, and so I wouldn't put it on the menu then unless I was in Queensland. Yeah, because it doesn't really fit with Melbourne. But like a lot of our grass-fed beef is great in the southern states just because of the rainfall. Yeah, whereas the grain-fed stuff is better probably far north and sort of New South Wales up through Queensland, and that's just space and size and the fact that they've got less rainfall and they're heavier on the grain feed.
Is there an animal that you wanted to get in that you haven't been able to?
Not really. I've got pretty good access to most things. Look, I'd probably like to see a little bit, you know, the last few years sort of kangaroos come a long way, and so is wallaby. And getting over the fact that it's a kangaroo or like a wallaby, it's our native game. We should be cooking more of it, like we should be doing it. Yeah, it's beautiful.
They're all down here.
Yeah, they're all down here. Yeah, in Flinders Island, they get a lot in, like in Tasmania. So actually getting over the faux pas of, oh shit, I'm eating kangaroo like a wallaby. You know, we eat lamb, we eat beef. You know, maybe we shouldn't eat sort of, yeah, they're everywhere in a sense. Right, so I might, yeah, I'll do the same on this side just so it's easier to see.
Do wallabies taste like kangaroo?
Huh?
Do wallabies taste like
Yeah,
kangaroo?
pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. All right, so I'll just come back here again. And then I'll follow that line through. And you see how I've gone a little bit more brutal with the shoulder there? All right? And then you just follow this all the way down and it just peels off, see? And then you watch the end bone, the floating rib. Right, so you really just follow the bone and always have your knife on an angle down and in, right towards the bone. If you have it up and out, and then you're just going to skip and then come straight in there. But you only do that a couple of times. After that, you're all right, you know. Yeah, but I'd probably like to see some, you know, like a bit more of our fresh Australian meat. I'd like to see some fresh crocodile and explore that, like, and cook with that, like, a little bit, you know. It seems to be, you know, from what the tail reminds me of. And then, like, I'm not sure who's been, to Europe, but it's probably a bit more like sort of monkfish. Yeah, where there's big sort of fillets that run down like a single vertebrae, you know, and sort of what would that be like, you know, and sort of looking into our own backyard as to what we have in Australia that, you know, and it's not just foraging, it's about it being sustainable and us actually having a sort of like a culture of sort of understanding that we can get these products and that we can use them, you know. And then whether you use classical French techniques or Italian or an Asian influence or whatever, there's things, and that's like the barramundi. We try to take a classical French sauce and then look for acid or salt and then how we can bring that into a dish and give it an Australian twist without being, you know, wanky and cheesy, you know. Right, so, yeah, the belly flaps are off. Now through here, right, it's pretty simple really. You just follow the bone, right, the end rib, straight through there. Yeah, then straight through there. Right, nice clean hard cut hopefully. Down and they match up. And just check in the middle. And then if you hit the vertebrae, in again, should just, yeah, just seam straight out. Yep, if you hit that, sometimes you don't, but that was a good one to hit then, right? So now really, right, now this is where, right, you want to speak to your butchers about things and find out too, because butchers want to make money. They don't really give, well, most of them, don't really give too much of a, fuck about the meat really sometimes, right? And so what they'll do is they'll take the ribs, right, a lot sort of longer, than you probably should, and that's when you get your end cutlet. I'm just cleaning that off because it's annoying me. It's not really a thing. Right, that's just a bit of his breastplate in there. Yeah, again, just for stocks or sauces. Right? And so really you should lose the floating rib, right? And then you should have, if you can see here might be easier, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right, so that's when you should really get an 8-point rack or a 6-point rack, you know, depending on how big the animal is, right? Or if you want to take off this, right? And to say this is a beef, right, like a big cow, yeah, we've got our porterhouse running down here, we've got our tenderloin or our eye fillet here, and here is your rib of beef. Now in a cow that might be 3, 4, 5 points, right, the full sets, and then you cut them through. If you come too far up, then your butcher's being greedy because this is all into the neck here, right, and it's not really the lovely primary cut, and you'll cut an extra one off here, and then go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So like you can see how like your 6-point rack actually finishes there with the fat coverage, right? They might push it to an 8-point rack, you know, yeah, which is kind of okay, you can, but it depends on the size of the beast. Like the smaller ones, when I do the milk fed, I can stretch that to 8 or 9, 10 points because the neck's not really developed too much, but this sort of animal it is, right? Yeah. Now, like you'd lose that because that's not really much, right? And you want your end cutlet to be nice there if you're doing a cutlet. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll do 6 for now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up. And then I cut close to the other side of that bone. Right, that should almost be able to come straight through here too. Yeah, just be careful with lamb because as the fat warms up too, it gets a little bit greasy. Right?
So have you broken down like wallabies and kangaroos because they're like a funny shape?
I haven't broken down whole ones, no. No, I haven't. It's very hard to get them whole. Although I've hit a few in the car, but yeah, I didn't pick them up.
They're a funny shape, right? They'd be kind of like half chicken.
Yeah, they would be funny shape, yeah. So you lose that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and make sure that he marries up with the other one in here. Down, close to that side of the bone. Right. And then we'll just knock this through so it's easier when we want to take that off. Now again, I'll just come either side, down, yep, all the way through. Yeah, same on this one, down and all the way through. And yep, and then I'll check that I've kind of hit the same spot. Probably haven't got enough through here. And then for this one, I'll just use the weight of the cleaver just to go straight through. Oh, not really. There we go, that's it. All right.
Do you get any marrow in lamb?
Yeah, there's lamb marrow, there's fat through the marrow.
Do you use
Yep,
that?
yep, you can use that too, right, to render it down or finish sauces with. Or if you're a bit worried about the cleaver, then you can use the hacksaw too.
Is that just personal preference?
Yeah, personal preference, plus it's over there, so, you know, the cleaver's closer. But I'd use that now, right, when I'm going to actually trim these bones. Okay? All right, and so, again, right, there's good meat in here, and so you could take, right, these couple of chops up here if you wanted to as well. Or, like, you can bone out, the other part of the neck, but we'll get to that in a sec when we start to break it all down to the next phase. All right? So, legs, saddle, fillets. Yep, the chop's still on there. All right. Shoulder, belly flap. Yeah, 4/4 neck chops. Right. That's where, you, like, if you see the butcher and he cuts them straight through there on the bandsaw, then he'll go really tight there, and then just cut sort of neck chops there. Yep, which my old man loves on the barbecue. Loves a bit of chew. All right. Yeah, well done on the barbecue, 40 minutes. Beautiful. Yeah, loves it.
7 minutes later.
Yeah, 7 beers later, it's done. It's beautiful. They're crispy. They're almost burnt. They're ready to go, aren't they, you know? All right, so let's start with we'll start from the top and work back. So we can bone either side of this. Now, like I normally have a tray, yep, and I'll start to go through all my trim as well too. Yep. Huh? Oh yeah, sure. So, right, we've got 2 parts of the neck here. Now this, right, yeah, cooked bone on is really, really good. Right, this is good for like a ragu of pasta. Right, we used to have a gnocchi with a lamb ragu at the point, and they're using shoulder and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, well, you know, why are we using shoulder? It's so expensive compared to this. And then we would clean these, truss them, seal them, and then braise them. And then you shred the meat. It's a bit more work to go through it, but this actually braised in a pasta with a gnocchi or an orecchiette or something, or like a hand-cut pasta is beautiful. You know, olives, goat's cheese, herbs. Yeah, yummy. So you could, you know, like leave it on the bone the whole way. Or if you want to do something that's a little bit different and do it off, you know, for a navran of lamb, he's in the herrings, right? They might use the neck, all through the navran, or the shoulder probably, but the neck's just as good, I think. And it's kind of funny because it almost looks to me always, right, like a bit like a pork scotch. And it's funny because this is where the pork scotch comes from, pork neck. Yeah, the pork scotch isn't the scotch down here. The pork scotch is actually the neck, and you can see in the sort of structure of it. Yep, if you imagine that being bigger and white, then when you get your pork neck for char soy or whatever, that's where it comes from. Okay. Then you take off the paddy whack. The paddy whack, the vertebrae through there. The big piece of elastic that runs all the way down through. Okay. Right, and I'll leave one side on one side, see where it's from. Okay. Next thing. That's a pilot one. Right. I might do one side into neck chops and then I'll have a look. Right, do you want to hold that for me? Yeah, but hold. Yeah, hold and hide your thumbs. All right. Because if it bounces out, you might lose one or two. There you go, you're all right. So you got a little, the little plate there, which is good for your stocks and sauces.
So with lamb stock,
Yeah.
other than obviously lamb dishes,
Yeah.
what would you use it for? Very quiet, strong.
Yeah, it's quite strong. I would normally do a white lamb stock and then a brown lamb stock. And so our white lamb stock, we blanch the bones to get rid of that fat and that lamby sort of, flavour. We'll blanch them, boil the fuck out of them for 5 or 10 minutes, rinse, drain, wash, and then do a white lamb stock. And then the other bones we would roast and then put the white lamb stock the next day onto a brown lamb stock and then keep all that trim for sauce on day 3. But probably, but probably, more for lamby broths and soups, with pulses or grains, barley, chickpea, that sort of, maybe a bit more sort of Middle Eastern, sort of Moroccan sort of stuff, lamb and goat, big there. Okay. Now, actually, I might do this side too, then it's going to be easier to bone out. Do you want to? Yep, you hold that bit. Yeah, once I get going, I'm all right. Yeah, you'll be all right. Don't worry, I'm closer. All right. Right. Go, yep. And so it's just a bit easier to work with, really. Right, again, you can see the paddy whack coming down there. And just follow the bone. All right, and you can see in there. All right, any more questions? That's good. Yeah, you really want to sleep yet? No, big fella had a little nap there for 10 minutes. Yeah, you know what, normally a little bit older now that I'm in my 40s. You ask Pete, he's actually seen this, but normally when people fall asleep in masterclasses, I just pick up a piece of lamb trimming or straight at them. And for some reason they wake up and they're attentive then, aren't they?
Just, I know it's probably an old school way of going about things, but what
Yep.
cut would you use to do like a crown roast? Like which
Crown roast, you would use the long rack, right? And so rather than having 6, I would have 8 or 9. And I might keep the floating rib, and then when I take it out, then I would wrap it all the way around.
do you ever use a lot of poultry or mainly?
Yes, we use a lot of poultry, a lot of duck, chicken for certain things. I don't use a huge amount of poultry game here just because there's a very short season, 4, 5, 6 weeks for pheasant and sort of guinea fowl, and I don't use frozen birds. So when I was in Europe, we used a lot of game. Different types of ducks, mallard, bacass, there's about 12 different sort of little sized ducklings like that you get, you know, different times of the year. Lots of game there. Here, as I said, we might do guinea fowl for 3 or 4 weeks. We might use pheasant, but that's about it. And the expense in Australia and this is probably where, you know, the pigeon market's died, is the cost of actually doing business to pay farmers, to pay farm hands to buy the grain, to get the bird. You get a pigeon and it costs $22, $23, $24 each. Well, you can't really actually sell that as a 60, well, there's probably 1% of restaurants in Australia that can sell a $65 main course and actually do something with it. Now, you know, 10, 12 years ago, the birds were $12, $14. When they double, you know, because the cost of farming does, they're now sort of, most of them get frozen and exported. And you find with a lot of those boutique farmers, until you really get into them, and it's easier with this animal because they sell it, it's, you know, $250, bang, you just sell 10 pigeons for that same money. And then the flight of the pigeons and then snipping their wings and then getting away, and droughts, and then you don't really get the fresh supply. So, you know, you speak to pigeon farmers, they're like, yeah, mate, I got 50. Oh, great, I'll have them. And they send them, they're all frozen. I'm like, well, got any fresh ones? No, mate, we only kill once a month. Okay, can I have some in a month? No, because they go straight here, straight there, come back frozen. So, you know, trying to shift that sort of mentality is a very difficult thing, as well as cost. Right, so here, we'll use the cleaver. Yeah, I might just use the little one, it's a little easier. It's not quite as scary. Right, and I'll do this on these chops too here, right? You can just go the whole way down and you follow the bone. Right, and I've just taken it off that side of the backbone. Right. And that's like your little lamb neck chops, okay? Yeah, did you cut straight through? Huh?
Do you ever use old animals in the restaurant?
We have explored a little bit of old beef and mutton. I like mutton, but customers don't like mutton as much as I. Whereas I think if it's handled properly and it's cooked, it's just the word, it scares people. It's like your grandma or my grandma, you know, just does a fucking mutton stew. Like it cottons up these things probably, and it's probably like a generational thing of, you know, World War II, the next people coming through, the baby boomers, the 50s, 60s, 70s, where mutton was, you know, what you ate because you were poor and there was no other food around.
What is so different about mutton?
So you have lamb or like baby lamb, right, which is normally up to, you know, depends on how fast they grow, 8, 10, 12 months, but it's really about the teeth. Then you get into 2 teeth or hogget, and then over that, when they develop their 3rd and 4th teeth, it becomes mutton.
Yeah, but why would you use mutton?
It's a lot tougher, the smell, like you get that lamby smell now, or goat, right, smell on fresh goats. It's just a lot more intense, the meat's a lot darker. It's like if you've had a cow, right? And so you've got a spring lamb that's only been walking around and using its muscles for 4, 5, 6 weeks. Then you've had something that's been in the paddock for 3 years, 4 years. Then it's a lot stronger, it's been worked. Smell, colour, flavour, right?
Do you use possum?
Possum, I haven't used possum, no. I'm not, yeah, I'm still on the fence on possum. Yeah, I don't know whether they're kind of completely native or not, or if they're a rodent. So I'm still sort of, like, you know, kangaroos and wallabies kind of aren't rodents. Yeah, but possum kind of is.
Have you thought about exploring retired dairy cows?
Yes, I'd like to. I've been trying to find someone for that for the last sort of 2 years. And then really with that is you take the whole cow, and it's a massive expense. And then, you know, where do you store it? Where do you dry age it? And then what do you do with, you know, 300 kilos of meat?
Do you do a lot of dry aging at the restaurant?
We do some on site, and now we do some off. We do like probably 50-50. So there's a big Corey Style where we sort of dry age back in one section. That's pretty set up in the fans and nice and low, and sort of minimal airflow and sort of nice and still. But like at Matilda, now our poultry guy, our duck guy actually dry ages the duck only for about 2 months because he built rooms because we just didn't have the space. We were selling between 2 and 250 ducks a week. And so to have them 14-day dry age, we had 500 ducks. Now that took it. Now the Corey Minister was big, but 500 ducks takes up most of that fucking cool room. And then we'd take 250 down. We got a refrigerator van I bought years ago, and then there'd be 250 down there, then 250 here, then every week there'd be 250 up, and they'd be rotated through. So it was just really too much time, space, and everything. But I've always wanted to be set up completely so I have a dry aging room with everything I want. And then we just come in and we go, you know, that one's ready, that goes on the menu tonight. That's, you know, Tuesday, that's next week, that's okay, that's not. Dream, but I'm not quite there yet completely.
Where do you hope to take your businesses next?
Huh?
Where do you hope to take your businesses next?
To take them or open them?
Oh, you're,
Well, I hope to open in Singapore or Bali, really. I'm not going to stay in Melbourne all my life. I probably won't do anything else. I probably won't do anything else in Melbourne, really, to be honest with you.
Why Bali?
So I can go for a bit of a working holiday once a month. Really?
Weather in the Gold Coast is pretty good.
Yeah, there's,
I know.
you know the problem with the Goldie? Yeah, there's too many Queenslanders there, mate. Problem, I love Queensland, a bit like New Zealand, there's just too many Kiwis, too many Queenslanders.
To be fair, lots of Brazilians on the Gold Coast now.
Hey,
Lots of what?
lots of...
Brazilians on the Gold Coast.
Oh, is there? No, I do like Byron and around that area and stuff. I was at Harvest. I went to Byron a lot in the 90s, and I didn't go much for the last 15 years. Harvest, and had 3 or 4 days at Byron afterwards, which is really cool. You know, that's nice. It's sort of, you know, good weather. It's beautiful. It's nice in here. Yeah, produce is great too. People are pretty relaxed and chilled.
Nice pork farms there, then,
Yeah, yeah.
Bangalore sweet pork.
Yeah, Bangalore sweet pork. Right, so the shoulder. Now, so you can bone that out. So I've still got 45 minutes, which is good. So we just keep, doing as much as we can. So the shank. Yep.
Oh,
Yep, the shoulder on the bone. Shank, shin. Yeah, and so shank at the front, because I always get those mixed up, as I said. So that's the shoulder bone in. That's the neck cutlets or the neck chops. Yeah, yeah, bone in, bone out. Yeah, the little plates for there, the neck, yeah, bone in, bone out. So now I'll bone the shoulder out, you know, just so we can see too. So it's all about understanding where the bones are and then where you follow things through the shoulder blade and through the plates and stuff too. Now, there's not a huge amount on this, but again, you know, this is what you'd classically do in Navaran of lamb. You'd bone out the shoulder, right? But you'd probably have a bigger beast or like a bigger animal.
Have you ever tried a kiwi on meat? You just tried like salami?
Curing stuff, yeah. I went through a salami phase at the point for about 2.5, 3 years. There was a big garage there, right? Well, yeah, garage. Like we called it a garage just because it had like a roller door, but would store all the booze down there. And I went through this phase, probably doing 3-4 pigs a week for sort of 3 winters. And you'd come out and I had prosciuttos hanging everywhere, salami, everything like this. And you know, the interesting thing about that is, and so prime safe in Australia is quite like a funny thing. And so like I couldn't send it, like I couldn't cure it and then make the sausage, or cure and make my mix and then send it to my butcher and say, okay, now you actually mince it and get it done and send it back, right? So prime safe won't allow that. But as a food premises, I can, with no restrictions, as long as I actually am clean and sanitised and buy good product, I can, you know, debone, cure, mince and stuff my own things and hang them anywhere and serve them in the restaurant. Yeah, isn't that crazy? And so I did. Now, there were no food outbreaks, which, you know, hopefully was all right. I know it pretty heavy on the nitrate salt, but it's crazy that you can't, because they say that if you send it off premises that it starts to lose the, you know, the control of it and the temperature, and then what the butcher does, and then what he comes back. So it's pretty wild.
well, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, but fun though. Fun.
Where do you think food in Victoria is gonna, like, not just Victoria, like Australia in general, is like heading? Like, do you have predictions for what's to come? Like, you've obviously been in the industry quite a while, and
Yeah.
you've seen it change
Yeah.
a lot. So, like,
Yeah.
you
I
got any
think-
ideas?
I think the biggest thing is that chefs, that all this kind of thing, with the whole hours, wage, time, effort, cost, is even we as a business are starting to look at ways to reduce labour without compromising the product. And so I call it the new algorithm, right? So, you know, for my entire life, I've, you know, woken up, I've gone to work, I've done my job, I've gone home. Whether that be 12, 14, 16, 18, 20-hour days, right? It doesn't matter. Those days are long, long gone. You can't afford that. You can't expect that. The generational shift of work-life balance is just different, and the world's changing. So I don't want to become a dinosaur, even though I'm looked at one sometimes, even though I don't think so. And so we need to move with that, like as an industry, and change and develop, and then look at ways so that, you know, the customer doesn't see what, you know, me wearing a chef's jacket for 30 years this year thinks is a compromise, and how we can still deliver the same product and then the same quality, but run a successful business. And I think that's the biggest thing. So, you know, whether it's buy fish in filleted, whether it's get your butcher for another $1 per duck to do the ducks for you, whether it's look at ways to have sort of less intricate food, you know, that's the biggest one for me, is trying to minimise, trying to keep the quality and the standard whilst minimising like the workload. You know, we still make all the bread in-house. Are we going to be able to do that in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years? I don't know. You know, do you employ someone just to make the bread and then do that, and you're charging for it like you're not charging for it? Or can you get a really good quality baker and you just try to absorb it in your food cost? Yeah, portion sizes, you know, probably getting smaller. When I first started, like an average steak was 250 grams everywhere. You know, now in most restaurants it's 140, 150, 160. I cut a 250, 280 fucking tenderloin and it's massive. I'm like, you know, people, you know, aside from my brother and my old man, my brother's got, right, so my brother's a crane driver in Adelaide, and his rule for a restaurant is no parma, no patron, right? That's what my brother lives by. So he won't go, if there's no parma on the menu, no patron, mate, I'm not going there. So, you know, you've got to adapt and look at, you know, what fine food is or what the market wants and what people want. Is that a 250 gram steak? Is that a parma? Is there anything wrong with that? No. Is that what I want to spend, you know, 90 hours of my week doing? Not right now, but there might be a stage where I might look to, you know, think in a more beverage-focused environment. You know, maybe I want to buy a country pub in 10 years and cook great country food where I can get the local farmers in, and it can be in between pub grub and fine dining, and the boys will come down and drink loads of beers, and that helps offset the wages. So how you can look at different algorithms like that, I think, is a big thing. You know, but touches on the plate is probably the big one, I think. So not as, you know, like you don't have to do as much mise en place. You don't have to, you know, do a summer salad with 15 fucking ingredients. Or this. You know, can we look at 1, 2, 3 core things that are great? That's my take on it. I don't know how it's going to pan out, but it's a really, you know, interesting time for how things are going to happen. And it's something that we're really trying to work through as a business and just be mindful of, and just, you know, but it's hard, it's tough. You know, the margins are getting smaller and smaller every year. You know, you probably run at a, you know, anywhere from 0 to 6% now. Now, sometimes I do the figures, it'd be much more worth my while to go get a job as an executive chef of a hotel, whether here or overseas, or go run a big group and $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, or I make 100 grand like a year in the restaurants. You know, but then I'm not a boss. And do I really want a boss? Is it really all about money? Or is it about being happy? Or is it about doing what you want to do? You know, I don't want a boss. I haven't had a boss for, you know, 10 years. I don't think I could take that very well. You know, I kind of do my own thing. I like being the boss, actually. It's nice. Yeah, and so where that develops and how that goes is going to be really interesting to see how the industry changes and evolves. I think, you know, one of the best things that could really happen for our industry is when we move to a cashless society, because that'll really level the playing field. Now, whether that comes in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, if everybody, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go.
It's kind of interesting. I love the dish. Do you reckon you'll be able to run us through a little bit how you made it, or a little bit of a secret?
Sure, the crab. Yeah, sure. So spanner crab we get whole in twice a week. Yeah, Fraser Island. They get cooked in a court bouillon, picked, down, go through 3 times, and then put aside and then kept in ice. Vacked sort of loosely. If you go too tight, then it really brings it together. So vacked, and so loosely to seal the bag, then packed on ice. That gets dressed with creme fraiche, finger lime, cayenne pepper, a little bit of green Tabasco. You know, so it's not too much heat, but it's a little bit of tingle. Lime zest, salt, and pepper. Yeah, that's really it. And chives in the thing. Then the cucumbers are pickled and compressed and sliced. The flatbreads we make every day, so that's a sort of 3-day process. Make the base dough, then it rests. Then you roll the second day into bigger ones, and then the third day we punch and cut them. And then we let them prove before service. Every day we take a few up, and then they get finished in the flame.
What about the prawn butter?
The prawn butter. So the crab shells and prawn heads and prawn shells we keep. Yeah, we make an oil, right? So we roast them all. Then we make an oil overnight. The sort of these days now, it used to be pure olive oil that would do a butter and olive oil emulsion, right? But lots of aromats in that, in the prawns and stuff and in the heads. Now we do sort of half butter and sort of half olive oil, and then take that, right? But we might do a long gastro, like it's packed. We might get a litre, right, or 2 litres of that. Then we'll cool that. That splits out. We get the particles, and then we bring our butter to room temp, and then we just emulsify it, like the extra fat, and then salt, pepper, lime zest. And then we keep some prawn shells, and we make a powder and a dust. And then once the prawn butter's piped, then we dust a little prawn powder on it too.
That prawn powder was good.
What's the process you follow when you want to make a new dish? Do you have any, I guess, standard rules that you want to follow?
These days I do, because I've never really been a very structured cook. I've always cooked through feel and flavour and what I want to do. I hate recipes. Like, I like reading them, but I hate writing them. Yeah. Even though I've just finished the second book, actually. Yeah. It's very painful. But I didn't write many of the recipes in it too. I just developed them, did all the key ingredients, then told the boys this is what I want, and then we'll do a photo shoot next week. So that's kind of, yeah. But now as we grow and the business is bigger and I'm not in the kitchen or in each kitchen every day, then it's a bit more important for us to have, so I'm told, a bit more structure, a bit more consistency. You can't do it like that anymore, chefo. Oh, fuck, you guys are lightweights, it's just so easy. So now we have a process that we go through that I sometimes adhere to, sometimes don't. We basically talk about the seasons, and it starts with there too. What time of the year is it? It's summer, right? And so what are we cooking in summer, right? And so then, after a while, you get to know the seasons backwards. So summer, it's, tomatoes. It's, lighter seafood. We're going to roast meats rather than braised meats. Zucchini, all your ratatouille veg, your stone fruits at the end. Like your citrus at the start, cherries, berries, all that sort of stuff. And so then we'll look at that and we'll go, okay, so now we start with the core, right, a season, then we'll move to a core protein if it's protein, right? If it's veg-based, then that will, but what's the main component, right? We got corn on last night, they run throughout, corn's your major component, right? It could be, lamb in spring, so we're going to cook lamb or corn. Now then, the next question is, and so what do we want to cook it? Do we want to char grill it? Do we want to confit it? Do we want to roast it? Do we want to sear it? Do you want to braise it? Do you want to, slow cook? Do you want to bone it out? And so what's like the method of that piece of meat or fish or protein going to be? And once from there, then we start to think about the flavour profiles, but we go through the balance. So my next book's actually called The Marriage of Flavours, right? Yeah. And there's a big flavour map that I've been working on for the last 3 weeks, really. So then you go through and I go, okay, so like I want to tick all the boxes. I want sweet, I want sour, I want bitter, I want umami, I want some freshness, I want some herbs, I want some texture. And then where those elements are going to fit in with the lamb. So then I might look at, right, I need acid, am I going to bring that in through a vinegar, through finger lime, through fermentation, what process and where in the dish is that going to sit? Is that going to sit at the end? Is that going to sit at the start? Is it going to sit in the middle? Is it going to sit in all 3 places? Where's my salt going to come from? Is it seasoning? Is it curing? Is it from an anchovy? Is it from an olive? Is it from brining? Is it finished with sea salt? Is it started with salt? Where's the saline and the nitrate's going to come into the dish? And then we'll work through all that, and then we'll start to look at herbs, veg, garnish, and then we'll cross-reference that into, right, so we've got a roasted piece of meat. Do we want zucchinis shaved, raw, roasted, glazed? What type of zucchini? Where are we going to get it from? All that sort of stuff. So that's pretty much what we do now. Whereas that just used to be my head, and then I'd order stuff, and then I'd work it out, and I'd cook it for the morning, and then we go, there's a new dish. But it's kind of not like that much anymore. Right, so your shoulder blade, just quickly, your shoulder blade, right? And your 3, major pieces of the shoulder. Sorry, I was just boning that out. My hands were working while I was going. So now if I was doing an Navran or lamb, right, I would clean this all up, and then I'd cut into, well, depending on how big I wanted it, but I'd cut it into larger sort of pieces to braise, casserole, right? Yeah, sealed off or marinated, done, maybe with flour, maybe with not, maybe brown first, maybe I'll thicken the sauce later. Bigger pieces. Look, there's a little bit of fat through there too. Yeah, but again, like the lamb fat sort of rendered is good. There's a couple of sauces that I've finished with, like over the years with lamb fat or venison fat too. So you think, okay, if I need fat in the dish, then where's that fat coming from? Is that coming from butter? Is that coming from cream? Lamb fat, pork fat, you know. And so we think about the balance of the dish as we go through.
What's your take on sous vide? So I've worked with a lot of
Yeah.
old school chefs that think it's just boiling meat, and then work with a lot of young people as well, which get a better product. It's a lot easier to handle.
I think sous vide probably has been overused and bastardised in the last 10 years. And there was a movement for consistency and for it being used, you know, through ease, and, you know, being used for all the right reasons, but being overused. So I think it should just really become like another cooking technique, right? You don't steam everything, you know, don't fry everything, you don't roast everything, you don't braise everything, and so why would you sous vide everything? Now, I can understand it completely. There's some things that I've never really liked doing, like I've never been able to, like, and we don't do any meat sous vide, any protein sous vide. Certain occasions we'll do fish, but it depends what it's for, maybe for a big event or whatever, but not really. Sous vide I like for vegetables mainly, you know, more than anything, or fruits, you know. Carrots cooked in their juice, endive, you know, things that I don't want to oxidise, like artichokes. If we're doing a special potato dish, then maybe I can control that being blanched at 80 degrees for 15 minutes, get punched for a fondant or for a little garnish or whatever, and then I've got it there for that, you know, kind of thing. So yes, it's got its place. Yes, I've used it. I never really overused it. I never really jumped on that or the Al Bulli bandwagon. They're probably the two big trains I kept off, which was kind of I'm happy for. But even if you look at someone like sort of Thomas Keller at its height, you know, Under Pressure comes out and you got a 3 Michelin star chef, you know, from the French Laundry, who I had 2 friends that worked there. And even when they were writing the book, they didn't have circulators 85 degrees set and whatever. They had 2 massive stock pots at the back that were cranked up, yeah, just at about 85, 90, and everything went into there on pegs and strings and would then be pulled out. Check. So, yes, it's got its place, but I don't think it should be overused. But, look, I can understand why some places, and I think it went through all this sort of phase of consistency, and that's probably where, you know, the sort of shift is in Australian food and the hospitality industry is, do you pay this guy to cook a piece of meat that he might fuck up, that might go in the bin, that not might be right, or do I have to actually do that so that every time a customer comes in I get a knife fillet that's cooked at 55 degrees. So what we do now a bit more is we take that theory, and if you think about what sous vide is and what all cooking is in a sense, especially a protein, it's all about core temperature. Right, and so what you really want to achieve, and so what am I achieving by putting this piece of meat that's either sealed or unsealed, yeah, that's brined or not brined, that's salted, that's marinated in that bag at that temperature for that period of time. And so what's the end result that I want? I want the meat to be cooked, and I want it to be perfect. And so why is that, like, and how is that? So that's because of the core temperature of the protein. So as a base rule, beef we work on 35, 45, 55 and 65 above. So rare, medium at 55, right? And then above that. Veal slightly higher, lamb slightly higher, and pork a little bit more too. So if I want to slow cook something, right, in effect that's what I'm doing, I'm cooking that piece of meat for maybe 60 minutes, right, or 25 minutes. I never really got into this whole, you know, 65, 85 sort of thing for 12 minutes. If I want the core temperature to be 55, well then why don't I cook it at 55? And so what am I really doing there? I'm actually, you know, in effect, I'm doing a modern confit, aren't I? Right, if I take a duck leg and I confit that overnight, right, it's cooked in its fat, right, the fat's replaced with olive oil or butter in the bag, right? And so rather than a bag, I'm doing it in a tray overnight as duck fat, right? And so I'm dropping the temperature from when I'm roasting a leg, and I might, you know, confit at 85 degrees overnight. Yep, everyone would have done, like in the rationale, you've got a big braise to do lots of stuff. Yeah, beef cheeks, like you load the oven up overnight, you set it to 85, 90, you go home 12 hours later, it's beautiful, right? Now that's a very similar thought process in the sous vide world, but really what I want is temperature control. And so what I've got at Estelle, you know, the flagship, or my favourite kitchen out of all of them in a sense, I suppose, is like a massive sort of centre unit, 3 target tops, 8 burner, 2 burner and stuff. But I had these, like I had them converted, but they're basically past boiler baths, right? That I had that all ripped out, and it's a shell that drains easily. But in there, like I had a thing put at the back, and so I could put my circulator in there, and put, you know, 2, 3, 4 gastros, and then we fill them with fat, right? So it might be duck fat, lamb fat, pork fat, you know, beef fat, olive oil, clarified butter, And so rather than actually cook in the bag, I'm looking for 55 degrees. Now, if you think about it, you get a piece of protein and it's sealed in the pan really, really hot, and then it goes in the oven. Like when I first started cooking, a piece of sea bass or barramundi would be hot, crispy skin. You'd fuck it in the oven, for 46 minutes. The oven was always on full. It'd come out, you'd flip it, you'd baste it, it'd go. Now, what does that do to the protein? And I say to the young guys and girls in the kitchen, if I go outside and it's 45 degrees, right, I get sunburn, I don't feel nice, I don't feel good. How does a piece of fish or meat feel, going into a roaring oven that's 250, 260, 280? It's going to be shot. Oh, fuck, it's too hot in here. I don't like it. I'm getting sunburn, right? And the outside cooks faster than the inside. So, you're not getting that slow, gentle heat and the residual heat that you'll get if you cook sous vide or if you slow cook. So I try to slow cook. So we will seal, we've got a Wagyu rump cap on. And so we will seal that and get a beautiful colour. And then it sits in olive oil with thyme, garlic and everything, and the circulator controls at 55 degrees, and I'll put the probe in. Now, I know that it's not going over 55 degrees, right? And so rather than put in the oven and then bring it out, check it, press it, probe it, is it good, is it not? I sit in here, I'm using the same technique, in essence, as a sous vide cooking method, but it's not going in a bag, right? There's no gases, right, to nitrogen going in and out of the meat. And I'm sitting there and I think, and I explain to the boys, it's like a nice warm bath, right? I don't want to go outside in 45 degree heat, but I also don't want to go outside when it's freezing. But, give me a nice warm bath, then I'm going to sit there for days. Yeah, it's beautiful. And so the meat is then resting and relaxing, and it's getting to that core temperature of 55 in a really gentle way. So that's how I got around the sous vide thing. But I still use the same method, in a sense. And then a really fine probe that goes in. And if I want a piece of meat at 45 for medium rare, then it sits at 55. And we'll put the timer on, we know it's 10 or 12 minutes. And then it'll come up to that. But vegetables are good sous vide. And so these things, they get obsessive because how do I want the meat cooked? How do I want to ensure that that piece of meat is perfect every time and then reduce the workload and take out the error?
Based on your slow cooking methods, have you
Yep.
explored reverse searing in your restaurant?
Yeah, I have done a bit of reverse searing. I went through a phase really when WD-50 was at its peak, probably 07, 08, 09, and I read about, if you ever blowtorched a large cut of meat and then slow cooked it overnight or anything like that. So they went through this thing where they would basically cook a whole rib of beef at 50 degrees or 52 degrees, right, for 24 hours, right? And then you get it, and it's a perfect crease on the whole way through. It's perfectly pink, but it's almost, I didn't like the texture. It was jelly-like. It was just a bit funny. And then what you do is you would seal it from there, or what we would do is you would dust it with icing sugar and then blowtorch it to kill any bacteria, and you get an instant sort of Maillard reaction without affecting the meat. Now, I did go through a phase like that for 3 or 6 months, but I found it, I didn't like the texture. The jelly was funny. I don't want my rib of beef just to be all the same. I want to have a nice crust, right? I want the fat to render down. I want to have some bits that, that's a little bit more than others. I want that little medium rare bit in the middle. So now all our fish, all our meat goes in pans or grills or over the fire, or, that sort of stuff.
So you go through phases.
Yep.
Is there something that you'll never let go of?
Or fire now, yeah, fire or gas, probably. Probably something that I'll never let go of.
But like something that you've had from the beginning that you still sort of use in a way.
Probably the way that we make the sauces. Yeah, I suppose that for me has grown over the years into what now has become my own sort of, sauce belief. Now just one sec, I'll get to this so that I can get to the leg in 20 minutes. So, the rack's either side. Yep, and the bone down the middle. Now, I probably should have taken these off earlier, but I was sort of talking and doing other things. If you take them off a little bit earlier, it's just a little bit easier to bone out. Yep, it just sits when you go through your racks, right? Yeah, maybe hold the top for me, Em. Yeah, once you get started, you're all right, but it's just a bit easier when it's actually on the carcass, that's all. All right. Rib cage, just do the other one. You hold that for me. So there's a little floating rib that the butcher tries to sneak on. Doesn't really do much though. So lamb ribs, spare ribs on pork, you know, lamb ribs, but with the flap on. So we do smoked lamb ribs at Matilda, but like we took them off because we're out of season now. Yeah, but we leave the cap and the flap and everything on. And then we smoke the whole plate and then joint through. And they're unbelievable. They are so good. Then we just get these big, sticky, beautiful smoked lamb ribs. Okay. Yeah, then I turn him around now. And then I know that the backbone runs down there, so I'll follow the backbone either side. All right. And I'll leave one on the bone and take one off for you, okay? But I come down each side now. And then once you get in, bang, the same as a venison too when you do the saddle of venison. And then you get down to the first row of bones. I'll take this out so you can see a little bit easier. All right, and you'll see here now, right, that it's still attached, but there's all these little knuckles. Right, and I'm going to go around those. On a venison it's big. You can feel them in there?
Oh, yeah. Oh, fuck. How you get through that?
Okay, well then we just go around them a little bit and then bring that off a bit, and then we'll just come through with the cleaver or with the hacksaw. Right, so just enough. Right, if you take it off too much, it'll come off the bone. Yep, completely when you do it. Right, and then we're just going to nib down there. Which, yep, if you hold that side. Go. Right, and again, like I'm cutting in towards the bone, not in towards my thumb. If you want it to be really clean, you can do a hacksaw, but for this I'll just show you the cleaver technique. Touch wood, not yet. Yeah, close. Yeah, close where like you know, yeah, when you're halfway through that, oh fuck, this is going to hurt, and then you move a little bit and then you just clip it, and then you get that warning to say, you know, just be careful. Right, so the rack. Now a few ways to clean this. You can go in between, or like you can just pull it down. Too, right? Yeah, which is easier when you've got all the fat left on still. Yeah, just rips the bone and goes through. And I'll take this fat off just so you can see the rack a little bit clearer after this too. These on a cow would be, the intercostals. Yeah, good for braising, yeah, pulling, you know, pulled beef, pulled pork and stuff. The intercostals are really good. And I'll take all this fat off, that way we can see completely. Right, and again, you just follow the seam, see? Like your knife doesn't really have to do much. Right, and then we can clean that up. Now you see these days I keep, we don't butcher as much as we probably used to when I was trained. Like I would keep that fat on and I would cook with the fat on to actually protect the meat. And then when I want to actually, you know, portion it or cut it, you know, that's when I would trim it up. Okay? But you can just rip this back. Yeah, cut a nice, length across there. Clean out the extra sinews.
Do you and your chefs teach your apprentices how to do this, break down all the animals?
Yeah, I do actually. I do. I kind of like to do it by myself early in the morning when no one's around, to be honest. Yeah, just put some tunes on and just butcher for a couple of hours. But but we go through it all so they get to know. Music choice, Metallica, Chili Peppers, Foo Fighters, what else? Yeah, they're probably, you know, my morning tunes just to get me, warmed up a little bit, you know.
Do you listen to much when you ride?
Yeah, I do listen to stuff when I ride. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
Same stuff?
Huh?
Same stuff?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Depends. Yep, I go through some classical phases as well when my mind's getting really fucking racy and crazy. But it depends. but I'm slightly obsessive about things, so I tend to go through phases of repetition. So I've got a playlist. I've got 3 playlists, and depending on my mood, then I'll listen to that playlist for days or weeks or months, just because that's how I'm feeling at that time. And then that'll have different contours of music through it, so then I'll know. Yeah. Right, now we'll take this off completely so you can see, you know, what you'd call the back strap or the loin of lamb. Yeah, bone off. Or some early Radiohead actually. I like early Radiohead. Some of their late stuff not as much. But I've been getting, yeah, but I found this playlist actually, you know, yeah, from probably before, you know, when some of you were born, but it's like sort of alternative rock classics from the 90s. And there's some wonderful songs on there that I'd forgotten that I actually loved. You know, Grinspoon, Something for Kate, you know, early sort of Alice in Chains, right, some Clowns of Decadence, you know, some good wild stuff, some Skunk Hour, good stuff, you know. Yeah, so that's it. All right. Your fat on, fat off. And so this is what your back strap would look like. You come in, and then you just cook it, don't you? Your back strap there. So, yeah, we're about to get into the legs now. So you've got your boned out shoulder, bone. That sits in here. This sits in here. The fillets sit in here. So we've got, right, Petey. And how long have I got, Pete? Yeah, 15. Okay, good. Yeah, well, I just got this and this to go. Right, so the saddle of lamb. I'll bone out the saddle, okay? But if I was going to roll the saddle, then I would have kept the flaps on. That's why I always think about actually what I want to do before I actually just sort of carve into it. Yeah, but today it's a bit different. But if we were doing this and we were doing a rolled saddle, whether a full saddle or a half saddle, then I would leave the belly flaps on so that when I actually get the saddle off the bone, then you actually, like you tap it out, you fill it with a fast, you roll it for like a saddle or a noisette of lamb. All right? So we'll come back in.
So is it the loin?
Loin, yes. Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah, that can be the loin, that can be the line, that can be the saddle. It can go the whole way. Depends on if it's bone on, bone off, and kind of what you're doing with it.
While you're doing that, Chef, is there any technique or agreement that you would never really bring into a kitchen?
Yeah, good question. Have you got a good answer? Yeah, I don't spend much time in pastry.
I don't know.
Yeah, but like I have thoughts and concepts and ideas of how I want the pastry to be, but I don't.
You don't touch it.
Yep, I'm a saucier and a butcher, mate. I don't like to get my fingers fucking sticky. You know?
My loin was good, but
Yeah, it was good, wasn't it?
smoked vanilla. Oh.
Well, the thing that I love about that last night is that it's so simple, right, that it's almost an oxymoron. And this is a conversation that we're having at the moment about that pavlova. It's going on the menu next week. Yeah, do we keep it that simple where you look at it and you go, wow, what's this, like Pete did? Oh, yeah, just a fucking pavlova or whatever. And then you look at that,
Fucking banging.
right? But then you eat it and you're like, wow, like my... And to what I thought it was going to be is so different to what like my brain's telling him it is, and my palate and my taste buds, and now it's kind of fucking with my brain a little bit, and then it's really, really good. Or do you make it more refined, more touches and more elements, but then you higher the expectation, and then you eat it and you expect it's going to be good, and then it's all these different things, and then that standout wow moment isn't as apparent.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. Good the way it is.
Yeah?
Keep it simple.
Yeah, which is why we're doing it like that. But then as chefs, it's like, well, do we need something else? Do we do another touch? Do we refine it more? Do we change the shape? Yeah.
No, it's good.
All right, I'll tell the boys that.
It's like, it's like
Huh?
yeah.
There's feedback, it was amazing.
Yeah, but probably a few more berries. I reckon it was a bit small.
We got a second.
Huh?
You got a second.
Oh, did you?
So did I.
Oh, good.
It's my second.
Was the vanilla smoked on the cherry wood?
Yes, they're in cherry wood chips that we have in the smoker, yeah.
How do you guys smoke it?
So the offset smoker, yeah, did you get the, yeah, were you there for the kitchen tour last night?
Yep.
Yeah, but I didn't see the pastry because I was.
Oh no, but we use that smoker for the pastry too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right, and so I carefully come in and up and under, right? And then I'm starting to come through the second letter sort of knuckles that I said, yep, earlier were there. All right? And then I'll come in again. And I've done a few of these so I kind of know where the bone is, but yeah, then we'll bring off that second tiered piece and then just the end there. And same on the other side. Down and around. Yeah, that's important, that piece to stay on. Alright, and then once you get to that, then you get to the end of your backbone and you can actually just sort of knock it out either side, but be careful because otherwise you'll split it. Alright, I'll come back again and make sure it's there. Down, and I'll roll that over. And then I'll let my knife just sort of come back through. Yeah, but then watch your fingers here because sometimes they're under and then your knife goes through and you're like, oh, that's just a little one of those that's just going to hurt but not really do anything for a week, you know?
Yeah.
Right. And then you got the saddle, right, that's still on. Flat, right? But if it had the flaps on, then you'd bone out each side now. And then you could put the fillets back through and then bone and roll it. Yep, they can sit back in there, and right. So sometimes you do that, with a moose or whatever, and then you leave the belly, tap that out, and then roll it and cook a big saddle of lamb. Yeah, full saddle or a half saddle is one loin. Right, that bone there. Right, legs. Yeah, 10 minutes to go. Beautiful. Now, do you know how many base primals there is in the inner leg of lamb? 5, yes, and they are.
You're already in it, there's no getting out.
There's like, I can't remember if it's beef or leg, it's like top side,
Yeah,
round.
round. Yeah, the obvious one. Rump.
I don't think they call it silver side.
Yeah, silver side.
Isn't that top?
Yeah, top side, silver side, round, rump. And what's the other one? No, the shin's down here. It's in here. I'll see my top side, round, rump.
Blade.
Huh?
Blade.
No, not the blade. Silver side, top side, round, rump, and the Girello. I call it the Girello in the leg, but it's not the Girello in a lamb. But I can never remember what the name is in a lamb. Right, that's like a little, yeah, fillet really. Silver side, top side, round, rump. Right, so these I just take these off at the start because it's just a little bit easier. Yeah, take your shanks off. Eye round. Yep. Eye round the Girello. Now, the only thing with doing it like this is I always struggle, you know, when I think about my butchery dream, as to see a leg of lamb with no legs like that. It just looks really strange and weird. So if you have problems with it, then leave it on. But I don't, but it kind of freaks me out every time. Because it just looks bizarre, doesn't it? You know? It's like, well, where's the rest of your legs? Yeah, shorty, what's going on here, buddy? You know, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Yeah. There is Kiwi jokes in there. So it's just kind of odd. But once you get past that stage, then you look for your 5 primals, don't you? So, right, the big thing with a leg is you've got to get around the H bone, right, or the backbone through here, okay? Right, it's a vertebrae down there, and then either side of this that goes through there and underneath. Then sort of once you rip around here, yeah, it's pretty easy. Okay, but it's a little bit tricky. And you're just going to be careful because you don't want to be cutting into, I mean, like the rump's a good cut of lamb, you know.
Do you have a knife or preferred steel that you use?
Knives, most of my knives I've bought in Japan over the years.
Japanese steel?
Yeah, Japanese steel. Some are handmade, some are mass production. So some the Mizuno UX10 is probably one of my favourites sort of day to day. But I've been to Japan 6 times over the years, so then I've got a couple of knife makers in Kyoto and in Kababashi in Tokyo that I go to too.
That expensive.
Yeah, they are expensive. They're between 500 and 1,000 each.
So you're going to buy one for all of us?
Sure, I think Pete said that's part of my contract. No, Pete,
Yeah, that's quite
yeah, but it's like that at the cookbook, Pete. Yeah, are they in this year or not? Are they in this year? Yeah, I better bring him with me tomorrow night then, huh? Huh?
You can just claim them on tax though, hey?
Yeah.
That's all good.
Well, you're buying for a lifetime and you look after them, don't you, you know?
Yeah.
When is the next cookbook coming out?
August, actually. Yeah. Yeah, but this one, there's not many left of the first one, actually. We're down to like a couple of hundred, which is good. So I might just stack them away, and then when, you know, the second one comes out, then the price bumps up, you know? Yeah, but it's like the old S book. Has anybody got the S book? Yeah, that book now is worth about $700 or $800. Yeah, I've got 3 of them actually. One I pinched from the library, and I paid the fucking, like the library late fee replacement for your $49. Right, they're about $800 now. Yeah, online, the SSS book. Yeah, but I got one in the sleeve, one from the library, and then one that, yeah, the Donovan gave me when I finished it on Dean. Yeah, because I still had them floating around then. Yeah, just boxes in the corner, they give them out. So, yeah, I should have taken a few more. Right, and so I just sort of start right off the rump, and I just sort of start to release it all the way back through there, okay? Yeah, then when I come round, now again, everyone does this differently. Right, I sort of split down through here, and then I just start to follow. Now, and so some people just come in from one side. I find if you come in through both, and then you go around the H there, that comes out a little bit. Yep, but when you get there, it's a bit like the saddle of lamb. They just sort of meet up a little bit, and it's a bit easier to do. Right? Yeah, just to that point here. So I'm just releasing the meat all off the bone. Okay?
So before Google,
Yeah.
what was your kind of go-to cookbook in your early career? Do
Uh,
you have a couple?
couple. I suppose White Heat was inspiring when it first came out yeah, that was the 25th anniversary last year, wasn't it? So 93, 94. Yeah, I remember it. Yeah, I might not tell that story.
Oh, what is it?
Well, I did my apprenticeship in Adelaide. So in Adelaide, yeah, Petey, how much can I say now?
Yeah.
In Adelaide, when you're an apprentice, or even still now, you know, recreational drug use was pretty apparent and pretty common. So I never did theory, even though I got 99.8 for theory. I never went to a theory class. I went to the last final and just aced it. And we'd just go and sit in the, like in the car park at school in my mate's little Tirana and read White Heat, get stoned, the dream of going to London, really. Yeah, from 16, 17, 18, and then at 21 I was in London. And then I did a day at the Square with Phil Howard, a day at Royal Hospital Road at Gordon's, and a day at the Oak Room with Marco. And I chose the Square because it was the best food and the best energy. And I went to London for 12 months, and I stayed 3.5 years. So yeah, that was probably, yeah, it was pretty rock and roll actually. It was a bit wild in those days. Yeah, but that was probably one of the early ones too, I suppose. That was the big one. Some early Anton Mosselman. Yeah, I've still got Mosselman's early ones. You know, when he was doing all the feathering and all that sort of shit. And the Charlie Trotter sort of trilogy that came out towards the end of the 90s too. There's some great books actually. The food's worked now, but if you look at the core flavours and the techniques, those books and what Charlie Trotter was doing was pretty amazing actually for, you know, mid to late 90s. So he came to the Square when I was there. And the funny thing, different stories about Trotter, and I've met him 3 times actually before he passed away. And he came to the Square for lunch, right, with 2 people. Oh, fucking Charlie Trotter's here, Charlie Trotter's here. And we said, okay, and so what's he going to order? And then like, the maitre d' came in and he said, and so Charlie just wants one of everything. One of everything. Well, like one of everything. And then what about the lunch menu? Yes, the lunch menu. And then what about the specials? Yes, the specials. And the a la carte. All he wants, gives me goosebumps, right? This was 99, 2000. And but he wants them in groups of 3 because there's 3 at the table and just send them. So we sent him like, I don't know, with the full a la carte, the tasting menu, the lunch menu, about 35 dishes, right? Then he finished these over like 3.5 hours. He'd like, just send them. All he wanted to do was see the full repertoire of Phil Howard at the Square, and he was happy to pay for it, and he was happy to see, they just wanted to see every single dish. Like, show me what you've got, buddy. Right, then he came in the kitchen, which was all great, you know, chat and pictures. Well, they're no iPhones, they were the old Nokias then. Yeah, 52, 32, 10, whatever, yeah, those ones. And then we're all like awestruck, and this is like 4:30, 5 o'clock, and we're getting ready for dinner service. Then about, 3 months later, 4 months later, these 3 fucking big boxes arrive. Like massive boxes arrive, right? And, you know, they came in the kitchen one morning, we're like, you know, and what are these, right? Like addressed to Phil Howard and all kitchen staff. And so I started opening them up, and Charlie Trotter sent all of his books, like 10 copies of each, aprons, pens, menus, all this stuff, like a massive thank you, t-shirts, caps, all as a thank you for his lunch. Now, just imagine, you know, these boxes weighed 40 kilos each. Like they sent 120 kilos of luggage by plane or by ship from Chicago to London, and the cost of the books. It's like a 10 grand sort of treat. And so then there's like 18 in the kitchen. Everyone's like in there fighting. I want that one. I haven't got that one. We're wearing the t-shirts and everything. Yeah, it was great. But yeah, crazy, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like you don't expect that box to arrive, and then there's all sort of menus signed to each person in the kitchen individually. You know?
Chefs can be good to each other.
Yeah, they can be good to each other. Right, and so you can see where I'm starting to come off the bone now. And I'll just do one side because we're running out of time. Right, and then you're getting into the ball and socket. And so because I've sort of loosened them up now, once I get over the ball and socket there, then it all just starts to peel back now. Yeah, because I've already come underneath that side. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah, because everyone gets scared of a leg of lamb. There's not that many people that actually bone out a leg of lamb quite well, you know?
Yeah.
Right, so then you just open it up. Yeah, make sure you got your rump and your rump cap. And try not to lose too much down underneath here. Go around, down, and we're out. Right? Yeah, and obviously the H bone, because it looks like a H. Right. So now we go into this. So I'm actually pretty brutal when I trim this, because otherwise you get all these scrappy bits on your 5 primals, but that's good for mince, staff, terrines or something. Now I always come back through here and around, and then my basic rule with this is, I know that this is the rump, and the rump cap's only small because it's a small animal. Yeah, but I basically follow from point to point, and then that'll open up my seams, okay? That's the first thing I do with the leg of lamb, and from there it's pretty easy. Right, but I go through this seam through here, point to point, and then it'll start to open up, you'll see. Right, you see how it's in there, and sometimes you just miss it like a little bit either side. That doesn't really matter, okay? But the seams open up. Now don't go too far because you bring him out here. Okay? Yeah, see, like, don't go down, yeah? And that'll start to open up. And then I'll come the other side of this bone here. Right. Yeah, and it's just much easier without the, the shin on, Then I really come through. Yeah, I'm not too concerned. I used to scrape and fuck around all that stuff, but all this just, by the time you trim, you're actually just scraping stuff back on and you lose sight of where things are. Now this is a big knuckle. Take him out pretty brutally. Yeah, because that's not nice. That's actually tough. Okay? Now that it's opened up, I can see, right, I take off my rump cap first, or my rump, right? That's always a triangle across the bottom, effectively. Now, if I wanted the fat on, I would go straight across there, but then that cuts into my silver side, right? And so I roll it off through the seam now. Yep, you know how sometimes you carve sort of rump with the fat on and you've got that sort of second piece of muscle? That's that there. Yeah, yeah, when the fat's on. Yeah.
Okay.
Right, so fat off, rump. That's good, isn't it? Yeah, has that been there long? Pete, yeah? Beautiful. Thanks for letting me know, Pete. Oh. Right, now we're going to put the legs. We're running out of bench space.
Yeah.
Bleeding through my heart. Okay, then we'll open this up again. And this is the eye of round, yeah? Through there, all the Girello.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, down in here, see? Then, like, you got your top side because that's on the top, round and your silver side in there. Great. Rump. Yeah, just watch out for the pilots too, Liam. Yeah, great. Right, so again, right, we're just following the seams. Yep, and then once they're pointed out to you and you can see them, they're, you know, they're fucking obvious, aren't they, really? Do you know what I mean? But if you don't know what you're looking for, it's that old thing. If you don't know what you're looking for, well, then what am I looking for? Like, I don't know what that muscle is. The eye of round, see? Right, you learn something every day. Yeah, don't have to clean that up too much. Yeah, this I'd probably like to poach on the smaller animals. That poached, right? Like we might have a little thing with some lamb stock and aromats. We just pop that in the back. And, you know, even at 40, 50, 60 degrees, it just sits there and poach and you just carve to order. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, silver side for the obvious reasons. Because butchers are super intelligent. Oh yeah, mate, that's the piece of meat with the silver down the side, isn't it?
Makes sense, so at least you can easily find it.
Yeah, you can easily find it. Even an apprentice butcher can find it. Yeah, just trim it up a little bit. And again, it depends sort of what I want to do with it as to how, like, I'm going to cook it. Yeah, it just needs a, you know, yeah, but good rest really, the silver side on like a younger animal. Yeah, and carved against the grain. Bang, bang. Yeah, beautiful, and it's a nice shape too, you know. Yeah, this bit now, these two, right, you can break down. There's submuscles in these. I don't know what they are, but there's submuscles in these that you can just keep following the seams and breaking down, but I don't. Right, but on a cow you would, and then you get into lots of other cuts too. Yeah, because they're just, you know, bigger on a beef. But for me, yeah, you know, that's enough. I watch the extra silver side. I shape it up a little bit. Right, because you've got to give the staff something, you know, dinner. Yeah, apparently, yeah. Right, and you know, then I just check. I've left a little bit of fat on there. That's good for when I roast it and I'm going to carve it. And then my last one. Right, and so if you kept the rump on, then that'd all be on the rump, yeah? And you can see his little rump cap in here, look. Yeah, that's the little rump cap in there. You have that triangle piece that you get off a cow that people probably buy in. You know, like a beautiful cut of meat. Yeah, just a bit small on the lamb, but on the beef, we've got it on at the moment. Beautiful.
Around how long did it take for you to get to this point where you could just do it quickly while talking?
Well, my record for a lamb's 14 minutes, right? A whole lamb. Yeah, Frenched, done, like for ready in the fridge. Smaller than this, only 8 kilos, so it's actually a bit harder than this because the bone structures are a lot more, like, sort of intricate, do you know what I mean? Like there's more smaller moves. Look, probably now, I suppose, for 8 weeks of the year, I do 10, 15 a week. So I probably do 150 a year since I was 20, 21. What's that, 22 years?
Oh,
150 a year, so maybe 3,000, 4,000.
yeah.
Like I can stand there, yep, I find this therapeutic. I could just stand there and butcher now and talk to a waiter, talk to the som, talk to whatever, and it just goes and happens. But, you know, at the start, I remember, yeah, when I first got back from London and I thought I was a pretty good boy then, I thought I was all the, you know, all this shit in a bit. And then I was boning out a lamb with Donovan Cook. We had whole lambs on, and he fucking smashed me in time, but he also smashed me in how clean and how precise and how I thought that I understood it and I knew it, but he just took it to Lyuka next level. So when you got sort of heavy D, you're breathing down your neck to work side by side, that if you did that, you just fucking go berserk. Then very quickly, you just make sure that you're fast and quick so that he then says, all right, boy, you do the lamb. Yes, Donovan. Because if he got involved and did them, then you made one little flip and it just became a fucking day of hell. So you'd get in early to get them done. Yeah, you'd have a much more enjoyable day that way. Right, so that's it. Pretty much. So we'll start from the top and then we'll sort of work our way around. So neck, bone in, bone out. Right, the little plates off the neck. The flaps or the belly, the lamb ribs. Yeah, flaps here. Yeah, breastplate. Yeah, but come up and have a look, yeah. Or anything else. And so then I don't fight it, it's easy. Now there's not many people that want to make that sort of sacrifice. But, you know, for me personally it was the right choice. And now I don't go to work every day. I just wake up and live my life. And I've waited all my life to get to the point where I own my own restaurant, the Estelle. I probably shouldn't have done another 4 or 5. It's got a bit carried away there for a bit. But yeah, but I don't go to work. I just live my life. And my life happens to be food and in the restaurants and doing what I do and doing what I love. And I'm very clear on that with my wife, with my children now still. I don't see them 5 nights a week, right? But I'm lucky. That's why we built Estelle in Northcote, because I live sort of 1K down the road. So the last 5 or 6 years, even though I've worked more than I probably ever have in my life in the last 8 years, it's more work-life balance because I see my children before school and I have breakfast with them and then they go at 8:30, then I go to the restaurant. 12, 1 or 2 when they're in bed. So now we have sort of strict time that I try to keep, you know, always Sundays to the restaurant, like at home, and Monday nights if I can. But I've got a really strong wife that supports rule the roost at home and be the big boss. So I just let her do that, and then I do my thing. But it's a really, really big, you know, it's a big decision. It's a really, really tough thing. But you can't, if you're battling with it, then you either need to come to terms with it or you need to do something about it, because it doesn't get any easier. And the 3 major times that I see in cooks' lives is when they really question it, and I've seen it so many times, like hundreds of times. It's kind of when they're qualifying, when they're at the end, right? I've done my 2, 3, 4, and so how long's an apprenticeship these days? 3 years, 2 years?
3.
Yeah, 3. Right, it's 4. So say you're finishing your 3rd, 4th year and you qualify, right? You might have been paid shit. These days probably paid a bit, a bit better. My first wage was $147 a week for like 90 hours. Anyway, but I learned a lot. It was great. But 3 children have toned me down a little bit. And 4 restaurants and iPhone. And it's a generational shift. It's things moving. You know, the industry's changing, right? Yeah, good, bad, or indifferent. I might not agree with some of the things that are changing, but I need to adapt, or else it's really going to affect me and my family and my businesses and my name and my profile, whether that be through the hours that people work, how and what they get paid. I mean, we're close to now, just so that nobody can say anything. We're actually really close, probably within the next 6 months we'll get there, is to actually paying everybody by the hour. So it's clean, it's done, no fucker can say anything. But, you know, the extra thing on that is a chef has never had to manage a kitchen team by the hour. Right, so then you've got to learn a new skill and then adapt your food, what you do and everything to boys. Now, I'm happy to pay them for 40, 45, 50 hours. They get paid for that already, boys, right? And Well, not like literally, but you know, I've got like, right, like in a 2 Michelin star or a 3 star, do you know what I mean? Bit of an ego. But then you get to the point and you think, well, actually, do you know what? That makes me happy, but that might not make that guy happy, that girl happy. And then you get to a point in your life where you don't really give a fuck what anyone thinks, and all you want to do is be happy and please yourself, right? And you want to look after your family and your staff and your food, and they become the important things. And so I'm on Facebook, I'm on Insta, but I don't post. I read it like a newspaper, but I hate social media. Right? Just gets caught up with all this fucking bullshit. Everyone's got an opinion. Great, now they've got a platform for that opinion. Wonderful, even better. Like I want to see what fucking Nancy Blogs fucking had for dinner and cooked. I don't care. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Her 12 followers might fair, but you know, who really cares? No one cares. So, you know, it's good and bad, that kind of stuff, but you just got to please yourself and look after yourself and make yourself happy. Right? But that's hard to do when you're young. Right? You're impressionable, you see things, you listen to people, you see these guys, girls in kitchens that you respect, that, you know, your mentors that you know, fucking go out on the tear with, you know, grow up with, you know, yeah, all that sort of stuff. But you'll move through that phase into where it's like, well, what do I truly want to do in here? You know, what do I really want my life to be about? Anyway, that's my philosophical take on it. But of course, I give it some thought, and probably I've got the best balance now.